the rabbi had to say.
Yes.
I thought that he was going to talk a lot about the ceasefire, and he alluded to it some.
Yeah.
But let me add a few lines to that.
Sure.
A ceasefire with Hamas is a very tenuous thing. And I think what Bibi Netanyahu is waiting for is for Hamas to violate that ceasefire, which they no doubt will do within a day or two. And he can turn right back on and wage war with them. They are not to be trusted. Hamas is, say again, Dave?
I agree with that 100%. That's why I'm asking, is this just another deal where you're going to give them 1,000 terrorists that are in jail right now for murdering Jews, and you're going to give those people back? You're just going to have them replanting and getting their equipment up and attacking again.
That gives them the opportunity to kill those terrorists when the war starts back up in earnest again. They know who these
they know that
are, so they're going to know who to go for.
Okay.
But yeah, I wish that the rabbi had alluded a little more to the fact that Hamas and any of the terrorists have violated ceasefires so many times.
Yeah.
They are not to be trusted. And, I think, speaking of the ceasefire, I think Donald Trump had his fingers in this big time. I read the transcript of Joe Biden's little farewell speech. He is a senile, bitter man, and I'll be happy to see him go. But he generally laid claim to this ceasefire. And,
it was all him.
He recognized that if he had any kind of influence, this ceasefire would have happened a long time ago.
Well, the war wouldn't have happened. Let's go back even to the fact that he let out hostages from America that were in Iran and for each one of the 6, they gave him 1.5 billion of our dollars.
Yeah,
and Hamas is saying, what? Do we? And then you had the 10/7 23 attacks.
Now this becomes a business model for them, Dave.
What a business model! Hell yeah!
Thank goodness, in a couple of days we will be done with this senile, foolish administration, who, frankly, has done everything wrong. I can't think of a single thing in 4 years of Joe Biden that has come out right. It's been garbage from one end to the other.
Well, the only benefit I see, the only one, is that it's making a lot of Democrats look like idiots who backed him and Kamala.
It's made them rich.
It is, and it's made some of them rich, including his family.
Oh yeah,
Biden and his family. But it also is the revelation of all the stuff they were doing to the mainstream media and to social media to make them lie about what was really going on.
Yeah.
So now we get it. Now we all get it.
Joe talked about the oligarchs in big tech. If you look at the facts on this thing, and they're still unfolding, but it was Joe Biden's administration that colluded with big tech to censor, particularly over the COVID business. This was our federal government that was orchestrating this thing. And now for Joe to come back and say, oh my God, we're going to be run by oligarchs. Joe, wake up and smell the roses, change your depends and get back to reality. You were the guy that did this stuff.
That's right.
Now, probably wasn't you, because you don't have the mental acuity to take care of things like this, but you could bet the communists in your organization were pulling those strings. So
where did they come from? Where did they come from? Where did all these people come from in the Biden administration?
I don't know, but I can tell you
they came from the Obama administration.
We're talking serious leftists here that swung the executive branch far, far, far left.
Yeah.
And I'm very hopeful that Donald J. Trump is going to change some of these things. And speaking of change, some of the orders that Joe has given, the flurry of them in the last few weeks, he just commuted the sentence to 2,500 more people.
Yeah.
Good for you, Joe. Let's let the criminals loose. But there is a thing called the Congressional Review Act. And I'm sure that Joe Biden's minions are fairly sure that the executive orders that he has written, some of them, cannot be overturned by the Trump administration. That's partly true. That's where the Congressional Review Act comes into play. Have you ever heard of this thing?
Never. Who did it?
The way executive orders work, Dave, is, for instance, Biden will direct his Department of Public Safety, let's just say, to enact some guidance. And I put that guidance in quotations.
Yeah.
And that has the rule of law until somebody overturns it. Well, there is a thing called the Congressional Review Act, in which Donald J. Trump can direct each of the organizations that he has a bone to pick with to provide to Congress the guidance that they have written. And then Congress gets to act on it. Now we have the force of law. Executive orders are temporary things. They don't have the force of law except during the time that they're enforced.
Was this enforced during Biden's 60 or 70 executive orders?
Well, it hasn't been yet because it takes somebody like Donald J. Trump to come into office and say, show me the guidance that you guys have promulgated and give it to the Congress and let the Congress decide on whether this is reasonable.
How long is that going to take?
Well, who the hell knows, Dave?
I know. Well, the thing is that he can get in there and become moot if they take out all of those 4 years to do this, right?
I think this can be done relatively quickly if he has a Congress that is amenable to doing these things.
Well, he does right now, for the most part.
We've got a pretty slim majority in the Congress, so we'll see. But things that these guidance documents did, for instance, Department of Education sexual orientation guidance, HHS gender change guidance, Treasury's climate-related financial risk guidance, EPA, environmental justice, HUD, DOE, there's so many of these things. Now, some of these Donald Trump can strike immediately, and I'm sure he's going to do that come Monday afternoon.
He's going to do all immediately, and probably after the fact, go in and do what you're saying.
And it's likely to happen. At least he has a mechanism. I think Biden, his cabal, is chuckling that some of these things that they put into place, Trump's going to have a hell of a time getting them reversed. Well, the Congressional Review Act is what does that. That's the mechanism that can be used for some of these stickier guidance. In particular, the ATF. You know, I'm a Second Amendment guy, and the ATF, since Obama, has been weaponized against gun dealers, gun owners, anything gun related.
Right.
And I think there's going to be some changes coming. The current head of the ATF, if he's not going to resign immediately, he's going to be kicked out on his butt.
Yeah.
And they're going to put somebody in there that's a little more pro-gun, or at least a little more reasonable. So let's talk about January 6th for a minute. Revelations have occurred in the last few days that the FBI had over 24 confidential informants running around on Jan 6, some inside the building, some outside the building.
I have an update. Jeff Sink says it was about 2,000 between all the three-letter things. About 2,000 people were running around this place.
That would not surprise me, but at least it's on the record for 24. The FBI, on the other hand, stonewalled when they were talking to a congressional committee about it and said, we don't know anything about that.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you lied. They also said they don't know anything about the bomb that was set outside.
Collusion. There was collusion between that committee and the FBI and the DOJ.
There's no doubt in my mind. So let's take a little trip down to Georgia. You remember Stacey Abrams?
Oh, sure.
Big, fat, black gal that was going to be the governor of Georgia.
She still thinks she's the governor.
She claims that election was stolen from her.
Right.
Well, the Georgia State Ethics Commission, day before yesterday, fined her nonprofit, which, by the way, she owns, $300,000 for 16 election violations, 16 violations of state campaign finance laws. And turns out three of these nonprofits, which she runs, donated $3.2 million to her campaign funds.
Gee, what a shock.
Yeah, what a shock. That was a revelation to me because normally these things don't ever see the light of day.
Yeah, I wonder why that happened. What happened?
Somebody's after her.
Well, somebody, and maybe these guys like Kemp and the Secretary of State, I can't pronounce his name, have gotten religion back and stopped what they did to Trump in 2020.
Well, the fact that Georgia, which frankly during that election that we're talking about was thoroughly corrupt as far as the election was concerned, has maybe seen Jesus. I certainly hope so.
But in my case, Moses.
Well, it's all right. Either one will work.
We have equivalated now Donald Trump as Moses. That didn't come from me. It came from like maybe Hannity or one of the other talking heads at
Dave,
Fox.
You are welcome in my book to talk to the burning bush if you wish. It's fine with me.
I thought I was talking to the burning bush. My God, you're almost as old as it.
Well, I wasn't there to see the bush burn, but yeah, I've been around a while.
Speaking of Bush, all these guys are JP's telling me they're not showing up to the inauguration.
Well, good.
Bush, no, I mean, but so nasty. What nasty?
You know, if they want to show their shallowness by snubbing Donald Trump, go right ahead. I know Michelle Obama's not going to be there. Good. That'll be one less male in the audience.
Oh, shut up.
But, you know, let's quickly talk about Pete Hegseth's confirmation hearing. I don't know if you watched that thing or not. I did. And
I watched about the whole thing.
It showed the shallowness of the Democrats in spades. And Mazie Hirono, who is a lunatic senator from Hawaii, this woman is an escapee from the asylum. And she was screaming at Pete Hegseth. Now, what did I take away from this thing? They spent a lot of time talking about him having sex with people and drinking too much. And, oh, my God, all of these things. The Democrats talked very little about what he might do as Secretary of Defense.
And what he might do in contrast to Austin and Milley.
Yeah,
let's say in the Afghanistan debacle.
They might as well have held hands and sang "Kumbaya" in those hearings. And here Hegseth is now. They were trying very hard to beat him up, Dave, and the man was very cool.
Yeah, and
stuck with the facts.
Yeah,
and towards the end of that thing, I watched it on C-SPAN. Towards the end of that thing, it was clear to me that he had won this thing.
Yeah, me too.
And the takeaway that I had was the Democrats on that committee showed themselves up to be shallow, inept, just not worth being on that committee, folks. I don't think you'll see this again. I think the balance of the hearings on advise and consent are going to run a little smoother.
I watched a little bit of the Bondi one. They tried to bully her.
She
stopped it. She stopped these guys, and she said, "Hey, you know what? I get to answer questions and stuff that you've posed at me. You don't get to just tell it, and then we go to the next question. I'm going to answer it whether you like it or not."
And Bondi,
that was great. That was great stuff.
She picked that committee like a redheaded stepchild, and I think she is going to be
correct,
an amazing leader.
I think she's going to be terrific, and I think these guys are scared to death of her, especially Adam Schiff.
Adam Schiff. Now, there's a man that should die from cancer. He really God needs to take him away.
He is a terrible person, in my opinion, as well, because he's a lying, you know what? I mean, he lied about all this crap, the 1/6 stuff, and
January 6th. Yeah. That was nothing but a sham, Dave. You and I watched parts of that thing, and it was nothing but a sham. And speaking of crazy people, let's talk about Tim Kaine, because he came across as a lunatic.
I love his hair, though. I mean, I want his hair. Come on.
No, you don't.
I know.
No, if you had his hair, that would mean you had the brain underneath it of him, and you don't want any part of that. That thing is nasty.
And I was wondering what he was doing as Hillary's running mate, because what did her husband do? How many women was he accused of raping? And he's over there pointing his finger at Hegseth.
Let's not forget the blue dress in the Seaman stain.
Oh yeah, Lewinsky.
But Tim Kaine, it struck me while he was raving that this was Hillary Clinton's running mate, and a less likable person you might not ever find, except maybe Hillary herself. This was a bond made in hell, and he too came off as shallow and a lunatic, and not much interested in answers as he was accusations. This is what these hearings have degenerated into. And I think the public comment on that I have read, the overall on these hearings have been the Democrats have come off as losers in this thing.
Oh, yeah.
And perhaps rightfully so.
Well, a lot of them are coming. See that, there's been stuff that's going on in the Alex Jones show. I don't know if you know about that.
I do not.
Dan Bongino is saying, hey, these guys got something planned for the inauguration, and it ain't good. Okay. Biden referred to maybe riots and things like that. So we're not out of the woods here yet. And then you got all these presidential ex-presidents going to miss the inauguration.
So I reread the articles. I want to make sure I had it right. Right now, what they're saying is that they're talking about attending the inauguration, but not attending the inaugural lunch, which is also a customary thing for them to attend as long as they're still living. But there was also some speculation in the article I read that they still think they may end up opting out of the inauguration altogether. But right now they're saying we'll go to the inauguration, but we're not going to the lunch, which has been a customary thing for.
What do they know, and when did they know it?
Well, JP, this just shows how shallow and useless these people are. Who cares about it?
They may have something up their sleeve that they don't want.
If this turns into Jan 6 with the Democrats doing the damage, I'm all for it. Let's arrest them all and send them to Guantanamo. I hear they're opening.
What I'm saying. What I'm saying is that despite all this stuff, the American people have spoken. We're tired of this crap. We don't believe you anymore. You're lying bastards. And you guys ruined the economy for us. We got wars all over the place. The world is a a blank hole right now because of you.